Kansas State travels to Ames, Iowa in a gigantic Big 12 matchup. We'll kind of, as we go, sort of break down these matchups and like what they mean potentially, but there are implications for every other team in this conference that depend on this game, as well as other games in the Big 12, right? But this is one of those linchpin keystone games because Iowa State does have only two losses in the Big 12. So right now they are tied for that first place spot. Iowa State is favored by 2.5 points here against Kansas State, a Kansas State football team that has taken some tough losses this year, but an Iowa State team that's also taken some tough losses this year. Did both of these teams lose to Houston?
I don't think Iowa State did.
Who did Iowa State lose to?
They lost to Kansas, and then they lost to. Wow. Oh no, I was gonna say that was.
Texas Tech.
Yeah.
Texas Tech.
That was the Baron Morton last second. Yeah.
Yep. So this is a nighttime game too. Night games in Ames with the Big 12 Conference Championship on the line, which, by the way, Iowa State has what? Never won. Okay? They haven't won a conference championship. I mean, it's dating back decades, at least. Has to be. I don't think they've ever won the Big 12. I'm just gonna look that up really quick. They have two conference championships. Both were when they were in the Missouri Valley Conference, which would later be known as the Big 8. And then that turned into the Big 12.
And then,
so it was before that. It was before the whole even rebrand. Yeah, they were years ago. Okay, so this fan base is hungry. Matt Campbell is doing a great job. We did a Big 12 coaches draft, like in the offseason, just like to kind of, because I think it was a new Big 12. Like, hey, where do these coaches actually rank in the Big 12? Or not draft, but like we ranked them, you and I, and then kind of talked about them. And, I think a lot of people were upset with where we ranked Matt Campbell. And that's very fair because Matt Campbell has done nothing but awesome things at Iowa State. He's been really good. He's overperformed what that program is normally privy to. My criticisms, rely on, in the new era of college football, would you want Matt Campbell as your head coach as a guy that doesn't dip his hands or toes into the transfer portal? Yeah, there's some criticism there, but to say that his team is not talented, this one that he's built with young talent too for even the next several years, would be absolutely criminal to basically disregard all the shit that he has done for this program. And Chris Kleiman, on the other end, they've done really well. They've won the Big 12 within the last few years. They beat that TCU team that made it to the national championship. Now, that was with Will Howard at quarterback, and Avery Johnson comes in this year as potentially the savior at quarterback, kicking out Will Howard, national championship level quarterback Will Howard. But, I mean, this is a good matchup, dude. Both of these teams are pretty solid for Big 12 standards. Iowa State's defense has been really locked down in that secondary. Where they've had issues, is on that ground game, that run defense where I said at the beginning of the season, hey, guys, let's pump the brakes on the Iowa State stuff. I got a lot of hate for that, whatever. Then they gave up 300 yards on the ground to UCF. They let up 1 billion yards to Texas Tech, 1 billion yards to this, that, and the other. This one for me is more of matchup based. I like Kansas State in this spot. I'll take them plus 2.5. I think you might be on Iowa State in this spot. I know it's in Ames. I know it's at night. I know Avery Johnson, if he's playing from behind, it's not a good look. And Kansas State's secondary has been a little bit leaky because remember, they lose Kobe Savage in the offseason. They lose Will Lee in the offseason. They lost several important pieces in that secondary last year that made it really good. And while I think that front seven is pretty solid for Kansas State, I think that they're gettable in that back end, and Iowa State can throw the football. But I do think that Kansas State's going to try to control this game and keep the ball out of Iowa State's hands. And I think if they can execute that game plan on the road, I think that they can get a win. So I'll take Kansas State plus 2.5 and not love it.
Yeah, I'll actually ride with you there. First of all, in Farmageddon, which by the way is maybe the best rivalry name in all of college football. It doesn't.
Correct.
need any stakes to be an awesome football game. Just look at last year. But the fact that it means so much to both these teams potentially still being right alive for the Big 12 championship and then also the playoff there, it's going to be awesome. Ames, Iowa is a fantastic place to play. I think that crowd's obviously going to be rocking there at a night game. But here's why I'm on Kansas State with you. You mentioned the rushing defense of Iowa State, right? They are 15th in the Big 12, which is not very good. There are 16 teams in the Big 12. Kansas State is third in the Big 12 rushing offensively, right? If they can stay ahead of the chains, if they can play clean football, they can really do some damage. To me, what scares me is when things have gone wrong for Kansas State, things have gone really wrong. In losses, they are averaging -2 turnover margin every single loss, which is terrifying. But if you play a brand of football, right, I know turnovers are hard to predict, but if you play a brand of football that is conducive to not turning the football over, not putting the ball in harm's way, a la running the football and getting chunk yardage on first and second down, you're going to put yourself in a much better spot. Also, Iowa State getting after Avery Johnson, they are tied for last in the Big 12 with only 14 sacks all year long. Meanwhile, Kansas State against going up against Rocco Beck, who does like to throw the football, who maybe is a smaller guy and maybe dealing with pressure off the middle and around the edges is maybe not the best at. Kansas State is second in the Big 12 with 30 sacks. It's going to get really interesting. However, Iowa State, even though they've suffered some losses, in November, they've been playing really good football offensively. They have 69 plays that have gone for over 10 yards. That is by far first in the Big 12. That has been really, really impressive. Kansas State only has just 42. Whew, I said a lot there, but man, to me, it just feels like a game where you can just pound the rock, pound the rock, pound the rock if you're Kansas State and put Iowa State in bad spots, get after them with your pass rush, and then you can flip the field, get some easy scores with those turnovers and whatnot, potential three and outs, work field position. To me, it will be a Chris Kleiman special, right? And what he loves to do, run the football, play good defense, win the turnover margin. If you're doing that, good things will happen, I think, for Kansas State.
Yeah, and what's crazy when you talked about that Iowa State explosive offense, Nathan Shieldhouse, right, like the offensive coordinator for Iowa State, goes takes the job as the passing game coordinator, I guess, passing game whatever for the Rams in the NFL, takes an NFL job. And I think there was some criticism, potentially from me. I don't know if I mentioned on the show, but in my head, I'm like, there were a lot of guys you could have gotten in that spot. You could have used that as an opportunity to kind of really open that thing up with the talent that you had. And then they just promoted Taylor Mauser, right? I believe he was the tight ends coach there, if not some other positional coach, and he just gets promoted. And this is his first season, and he's been fantastic, right? So credit to him, credit that coaching staff for Iowa State for one getting off to the hot start that they have, and you know in the power grab that we've continually talked about in the Big 12, like credit Iowa State. I know that they've lost two games, but also credit them for winning certain games that other teams would stumble in. Credit them beating Iowa. Uh, I just had like a bunch of their games pulled up, but credit them coming back in a UCF game, right? In a game where they let up 300 yards on the ground and being able to come back and fight and win that ball game. That was impressive. So I'll say credit to both of these teams. I've been a little bit more impressed with the body of work that Iowa State has maybe put together, but I think matchup base, I kind of like Kansas State in this spot. So sorry, Iowa State fans. I'm fading you guys once again. I'm sorry, but I honestly, I hope I hope we get to see an Iowa State Arizona State Big 12 championship. I think that would be my favorite outcome.